Kato, and I'm back. Sorry that it took a while, but my summer took a really weird turn towards the end. I'll explain later, but I figure more people care about the books and the movies that I got through while I was gone. So I'll start with that, and there is a lot of stuff to catch up on, especially movies. It sounds crazy, but I watched over 50, like 50, way too many things to review. So I'm only going to end up talking about three of those, but I'm really excited about those three. There's a new favorite movie, a new favorite director. God, yeah, I watched so many good things. A new favorite Bresson movie, a least favorite Kurosawa. I started a bunch of trilogies. Speaking of trilogies, great segue. I started reading some trilogies too. Book-wise, I read a lot less. I only read 14 books, which over 2 months isn't that many. I'll talk about all of those, but honestly, I don't care about some of them that much. I didn't really like them to begin with, and it's been a few months, or 2 months. But yeah, first up is movies, and I'll also be able to show off some new asset, like art stuff that I commissioned from Kusaya. She's the artist who did my channel intro. So yeah, movies. Okay, so movies. First up is Abbas Kiarostami, who is a new favorite director of mine. It feels kind of soon to say that because I'm only a few weeks into having discovered him, but I connected with his style instantly. I've only seen 4 of his movies, and there's so much range in those 4 that I think I'm safe in saying he's a new favorite. He worked a lot with children, making movies with them as lead actors and about childhood thematically. Also working with non-actors in general, so there's a lot of naturalism, like unscripted stuff, combined with these long takes, great lighting in everything he makes, and it's so textured. I started with the movie Where is the Friend's House, which is so beautiful. It's the first in a trilogy, and I liked it so much that instead of watching the other 2, I wanted to savor the rest. So I ended up taking a kind of weird detour in his filmography and kept going from a random place. So I watched Orderly Disorderly, which is an educational short film that he made for the children's center that he worked at. Visually, it looks really great. And then after that, I watched this documentary called First Case, Second Case, which was super interesting. It's essentially 2 different scenarios of this classroom disciplinary situation where a student gets in trouble and it's handled in case 1 and case 2. And so after showing each case to the faculty of the school, they get interviewed about who they think did the right or the wrong thing in each scenario. Except that this was filmed only a few months after the Iranian Revolution, so this small classroom setting gets magnified and recoded into being about so much more than just the classroom. It's a great framing device to get these people to discuss morals and solidarity of the revolution. It was super interesting. And lastly, I watched another feature-length movie called A Wedding Suit. This is another one for kids by kids, and this one was gorgeous. Like, it cemented him as being a favorite. It looks so beautiful. He has so many more established movies that I haven't seen yet, mostly with adult actors like Taste of Cherry or Close Up, which are supposed to get very meta. The rest of the trilogy that I mentioned at the start is too. So no comment on that yet, but I'm so excited to have found him. If this is a new name to you, definitely check him out because I'm super glad I did. Next one I want to talk about is A Brighter Summer Day. New favorite movie, 5 stars. Actually, when I first watched this, I only gave it 4 stars. I liked it a lot, but then a few days went by where all I did was talk about this movie to my coworkers, to basically anyone who would listen, and then a few weeks went by, and I was still being haunted by some of the songs in this, by the ending, by certain scenes throughout, and now that I'm coming up on a month having seen it, I don't think a day has gone by where I haven't thought about it at some point. I just haven't stopped thinking about it, period. And with how many other movies I've watched, it's saying something that this is the one I keep coming back to. It's weird for it to go from a 4 to a 5 without having rewatched it, but it's such a dense and mature film that it took me a long time just to digest it, and even then I'm still being affected by it. It's just so beautiful and profound. I want to rewatch it, but I also love the feeling that it left me with on my first watch, where I think about it and get a pang in my chest, and that's such a rare feeling, especially to have for this long, like for weeks now. I'm worried that if I watch it again so soon, then that feeling is going to go away, and I watch so many movies that having a favorite is something that I really want to savor. On paper, this is a very slow movie, but just a word of advice: do not be intimidated by the runtime. Trust that it'll be worth it. The ending of it alone destroyed me. God, yeah, it's so good. I haven't even said what it's about. It's set in 1960s Taiwan. It's just this grainy, sunburnt amalgam of childhood and national politics and violence and identity and love. Just take my word for it. It's a perfect movie. It's so, yeah. And then the last movie that I'll talk about is The Spirit of the Beehive, which was a surprise favorite. I did not go into this with any expectations and was super blown away. I can very easily see the influence that this had on Pan's Labyrinth, but also on Days of Heaven. It felt like an amalgam of both. I don't like those movies equally, but I like had the best parts of both. This is a movie that relies on tone a lot, and it also doesn't over-explain anything. It's a very quiet movie that tackles these heavy political themes that took place in Mexico in the 1960s, I think, and the inner turmoil of this family through a child's perspective super well. Visually, though, it is amazing, and it's what elevates this movie to like another level. Every scene looks so beautiful, and then in a Brissonian sense, it's about capturing these moments of children on film. The wonder that they bring is being captured like a firefly in a jar, and you just get to see it radiate warmth out. There's this part at the beginning of these kids watching a movie, and it is so gorgeous and eerie. The entire movie feels at points spectral and playful. It's just these two sisters exploring this natural landscape, and that in itself works as a metaphor for so many different things. I know that it's based off of a book, but this reminded me of a different book of housekeeping by Marilyn Robinson, if that means anything to you. I just really, really liked this and did not have any expectations going in, so it resonated way, way too hard. And then speaking of books, that's all the movies that I want to super show off. There's like 50 more, and I do have thoughts on them, but I just don't want to open that can of worms time-wise. I'm going to talk about the books that I read now, and I'm going to touch on these and be like way faster, not like super review them. Yeah, books. Okay, I am going to go kind of fast. I don't have like notes, but I have like a list of all the books I read and whatever comes to mind. First up is Master and Margarita. I was trying to dip my toes into Russian classics, and this one seemed approachable, even though it is kind of long. It's like 400 pages. I have conflicting opinions. Initially, I really liked it, like so much. I was laughing out loud, and I was like, wow, book is amazing. But by part two, there's like part one, part two, a lot of the charm had kind of left, and there were also no stakes for a weird reason that might not make total sense, but I liked too many characters that I didn't care who won or lost, because regardless, someone I liked would win, and also it was just like happening in funny ways. And so yeah, a lot of like the stakes, like the climax, just felt anticlimactic, because I was like, I don't really care about what happens, I'm just happy to be here. Anyways, yeah, it kind of just fell flat towards the end. It like declined pretty heavily, especially compared to like how high it started. I don't really hold it in like that high of regard now afterwards, even though on paper some good stuff did happen and I liked it. Then I read this evil book, The Sluts by Dennis Cooper, which is bar none the most depraved and like vile, disgusting things I've ever read. Yeah, so much so that like it made my mental health like spiral, and also just like wasn't worth it. Like, there's like a mystery aspect. It's like a thriller, erotic thriller thing, but yeah, every like relationship is like SA or like S&M or like super intense and just like a castration, mutilation type beat. And yeah, it just went way too far, way too many times, and wasn't worth it in the end, to me at least. Yeah, it just like the mystery aspect got built up so much that it was like too big not to fail, and then it did, and I was like, damn, I really traumatized myself for nothing. There's like meta elements that like speak to that a little bit, but not enough that I'm like, oh, I'm glad that happened to me. Yeah, overall, skip that one. I would recommend a lot of people to skip that one if you're interested. So then afterwards I read Love by Toni Morrison to try and heal, and it kind of worked, although I have not recovered from The Sluts, to be honest. I thought Love was good. Bluest Eye still liked more, but there was so many passages. Like I have a little notepad actually of like quotes that stood out because yeah, there's so many things that like you just read it once and you're like, damn, and then you just read it again and again and again. She's just so smart and writes so well, so like evocative and like emotional, and just these little like flawed characters that are just so deeply human. Yeah, just a great book, especially like centering around like this like weird family dynamic that's going on. Part of it is like kind of also a mystery because it's like how do these people relate to each other? You're kind of walking in on like a house that's like already like fallen apart, or like these people that have fallen out, and then retrospectively sort of piece together like who they were, what they meant to each other. Yeah, just really smart like form wise, and then like the actual substance, like the words. There's so many quotes that stand out. I'll put some of them on screen, but yeah, just really good book. I read Pew by Catherine Lacey. This was for the book club that I tried to start. Trainwreck, disaster, all my fault, by the way. Like scheduling wise, I just did not know what I was doing, and so 50 people joined and maybe read this. I don't know because only one person ended up making it to the meeting, and it was fine. Like we had a good conversation, but you know, 1 out of 50 was not what I was hoping for. It doesn't super matter though because I didn't like this book in general. So like, less I had to talk about it, the better. Just really underwhelming, confused even, where like none of it mattered in the moment, and then also retrospectively it didn't matter. I feel like it's presented as like a week, and then like on the weekend something happens, but like any of the weekdays could have been in a different order, would not have mattered because none of them had like any weight. Every character was just this like middle America caricature meant to represent something about like religion or like politics and race, but like it was just so fleeting and so underhanded that like it did nothing. That's whatever. I read Artful with some friends. Did not like it. I think only Iggy ended up liking it, but also I don't know. I feel like this is a weird first Ali Smith to read because it is doing a lot of strange things like form wise, and I don't think it did it that well. This looks like a big book. It's not a big book. Like there's so much white space. And, yeah, I don't know how to like convey what this is. It's like art theory mixed with like these lectures, but it's also like the ghost of her husband. I don't know. Every metaphor in it, I just felt like was too on the nose, and then she just cites so many things that I did not care about. Like half the book is just like, quotes from like random bullshit that I for real just ended up skipping because I was like, I'm not about to read about the Golden Bowl. Yeah. Anyways, I didn't like it. And then speaking of didn't like, Lolita. Didn't finish this. There's like a part 1 and a part 2 to this book, and I finished part 1, and then part 2 I was just like not feeling it, and then I started asking myself like, who am I trying to finish this for? Because it definitely isn't me. I don't know. This is a weird one where its legacy maybe like spoiled it because I was expecting something either way more depraved or way funnier, and it was just not doing like any of both. It was kind of like a screwball comedy at some points, but even then it like felt super tame, and then the writing itself is like way too dense where it just like took a lot out of me and I didn't get anything in return. Yeah, I just put this down and didn't really look back. I read all of A Silent Voice, the manga series. First thing I've read in Japanese. Super proud. Don't really like the series that much, but it's basic enough that like it was really good practice. Yeah, not much to say. I read some more manga. I think I'll talk about that later when I talk about like the last couple months, like what I've been up to outside of like this. Same with the next book, Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. It's this like self-help productivity book. If you're wondering why I read that, yeah, me too. It'll make sense later, but yeah, long story short, I didn't like the book. The message initially was cool, but then like the rest of the book just kept going for some reason on these weird tangents and like anecdotes about like solitude and like a log cabin, like Abraham Lincoln type shit, where I don't know, it just like lost the plot for me at least. It was also written super basically. Like the dude literally was like, in this essay I will convince you that, and it's like, okay, this is like giving like middle school English. But after that I read The Big Clock by Kenneth Fearing. Interesting premise. I don't know, conflicted. I didn't really like this. retrospectively. In the moment, it was fun enough to like, it's like a page turner. But the premise is it's this dude who works at like a newspaper industry company. He's like in the crime division, blah blah blah. He goes out with the boss's daughter, or not daughter, like girlfriend, sorry. Boss's girlfriend, and the boss sees them together but doesn't recognize him. Next day, girlfriend dies, and so the boss puts him in charge of finding the man who was with her last night. So he's trying to like find himself, and he's like leading this like investigation while also trying to like bury the clues. And it's like, oh, this is some like little noir like 1950s thriller. Yeah, had me turning every page. I was like, let's go, like discover the mystery. Right up until the end. Yeah, there were like 5 pages left, and I was like, damn, like I can't believe, how are they gonna resolve this? And then it turns out that they didn't, and it just like has the most like haphazard and like inane, banal ending. Yeah, just not good. But what was good was Outline by Rachel Cusk. This ugly ass cover, built character. I read this in public. Yep, I'm pretty brave for doing that. I feel like everyone who talks about this book online praises it. So if you're like a booktube veteran, no surprises here. I liked it. I'm just more personally surprised that it held up to like how high my expectations were, because literally everyone who talks about this book talks about it like very, very highly. But yeah, it's that good. My first Cusk, super smart, really liked it. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, yeah, she's just on another level. I'm excited to read more by her. But yeah, nothing like new like opinions or like hot takes about that. It's just as good as people say. Really thinky, like on writing, like the sort of like meta elements. Yeah. Then I read Too Much and Not the Mood by Durga Chubose. Conflicted. First essay, Heart Museum, I think it's called. Super good. It's like 90 pages. So like half the book consists of that essay, and then it's like a collection of other writings. The other writings didn't really do it for me that much, but the first one was such a high note that like even by the end of like slowly declining, we're still ending in like a pretty high place. Yeah, Heart Museum was just great. It's like so romantic, of like little tiny details, so wistful. And yeah, I just really connected with her writing, her references like to artists and like musicians and stuff. Really liked it. Yeah, underlined a ton of it, gave it to a friend. 2 thumbs up. Then I read The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. Did not like this book. Really long, really empty, like vacuous, skeletal. It's this like dystopia, air quotes. It's like very understated. I didn't really enjoy much of any of it. Like the writing wasn't super good. Part of which might be like translation issue, because it was like hella dry, like suspiciously dry. Like I don't know, something was afoot. But yeah, and then plot wise, it's also just like super like wistful, but like I don't know, like a barren, I guess. Yeah, not much going on here at all. And then I don't know, I just didn't like it. Then I read A City of Saints and Madmen by Jeff Vandermeer. It's like a 700-page book, but it was so good. I like have no idea why I like had so much faith in it. But first, it's like a collection of like stories, short stories, but like they're all pretty long and like self-contained. The like real protagonist or like subject of the book is this like fictional city/state place called Ambergris, and each story just shows you like a different side of it, either like in just who inhabits it, like the creatures that exist. Some of them are like political, some of them are like historical, some of them are like more contemporary. I just found it to be really smart and like surprisingly readable. Like I said, the book is super long, but it did not feel that way at all. At some point, like everything just started clicking, and I was like, oh, like this is really fun. Maybe by like the second or third story. But yeah, I just could not put it down after that. So I was like, I must really like Jeff Vandermeer. So then I started reading Annihilation. I finished it already. Didn't really like this one. I don't know. Maybe my expectations were too high, but I was really surprised at how much I didn't really enjoy this. A lot of like book friends have praised this, or like, I don't know, the general consensus seems to be that it's pretty good. I just found it to be underwhelming. It's like the premise was interesting, but also not explored very much, because there's like so much mystery surrounding it, where like you don't really get answers to anything, and it's like to get more answers you have to go through these really like brick, like stone faced characters that I just found to be really dense and like dry and boring. And yeah, interesting premise, uninteresting characters, and then a very ambiguous, like abstract ending that didn't really, I don't know, make it feel worth it. It's also a really short book, so like, I don't know, it just like didn't super land. I get it's the first in a series of 3, so it's like mostly exposition for the next 2, although I am over halfway through book 2 and not super loving it either. I don't know. For some reason, the second book, the pacing just feels really, really slow in comparison to this one. Although I do see like the world building of like tertiary characters like getting the spotlight, and like I don't know. The scope is growing. I can see it paying off, but also I'm like very suspicious that I don't know. I have like this inkling that like book 3 is going to be really disappointing because so much of it is like the question is more interesting than the answer could be, and like some Scooby-Doo type shit, like they unmask the mystery and it's just a person, and it's like it doesn't super matter. But yeah, that's all the books I read. Hey again. Okay, so at the start of the video I said that at the end of the video I would talk about the last couple months, like personal life wise. I already recorded it once and it ended up being 15 minutes long, so this is take 2. Trying to be way more condensed. Long story short is, in general, I am studying Japanese, and I've been doing it every day for about 4 months now. And the reason I'm doing it is because I want to do a master's program in Japan. I'd love to move there, and that seems like the easiest or like most straightforward way to do it. And like a way that's like more structured and like, I don't know, having something lined up. Anyways, there is a test that I can take in December in America, and it happens once a year, so I really want to pass it this December instead of like having to wait till the next one. So I'm cramming, hence why I'm doing like 5 hours a day ish, and so it is taking up a ton of my free time. And 2 months ago I was getting really frustrated at the amount of time I was spending on my phone, because while I was like, my time is so precious, I was still like doom scrolling and like just, I don't know, wasting it. And so I got really motivated towards like fixing that, because I was like, look at all these hours that I could be doing spending blank. And so I ended up finding this community called Dumb Phones, and I got a flip phone. It's really cute though. I like it, and yeah, it has Spotify, which is pretty neat. But long story short is the dumb phone community and like productivity people recommend this book by this dude named Cal Newport called Digital Minimalism or Deep Focus, but it's stuff about like attention span and like technology use. Anyways, that's why I read that one like self-help book, and part of it encourages you to step away from anything optional for 30 days, like 30, and I don't know, you'll have like great results about like whatever. And so I was like already interested. I'd already bought a flip phone, so I was like, might as well just take another step further. So yeah, long story short, I ended up doing the 30 days and essentially like disconnecting as much as possible, which kind of just meant like isolating for 30 days because a lot of my friends are online, and I didn't really do anything to supplement that. So I ended up getting really depressed, and then it just like fed into each other, and I just sort of spiraled, hence why I watched 50 movies or whatever. Yeah, pretty dumb overall, but I came away from it learning some lessons like by force, because I was like, oh, maybe my hobbies don't help me like mental health wise, because everything I do is like very solitary, like reading books, watching movies, listening to music, and so it kind of forced me to like reconfigure how I go about like self-care in general, which was good now, but like in the moment it was not a good month. But yeah, the last 2 weeks ish have just been like recalibrating since then, and like reintroducing some stuff into my life, and kind of just, I don't know, deciding like what's important enough to do that with. Turns out not that many things that like I gave up I'm like itching to go back to, which is cool. But yeah, I'm not trying to get like preachy or anything, but that's just like what happened last month. And yeah, the last 2 weeks have been pretty good though, just like hanging out with friends. I've been cooking a bunch of dinners, which is really cool and exciting. And yeah, I went to a concert like 2 days ago. I saw King Cruel in Austin. It was pretty nice. I have another concert in Denver in a couple of weeks, the 27th. I'm seeing Jockstrap, so if you're there, feel free to say what's up. But yeah, Not too much like else that happened. I feel like I should have more to report, but at the same time, I don't want to like super go on because take one was like 15 minutes. This seems like an okay update, hopefully, but yeah, I'm doing better, and that's that. Okay, bye.